I'm sure many of our participants are unsure of like which education route to go to, or unsure of whether the route that they have chosen for themselves is the right one. So perhaps can we get you to share on why you chose your post-secondary route then? And looking back now, how do you think that that track actually impacted your tertiary education or career? So I think we'll go in the same order again.
Easier, yeah. Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll start first. So I think my 105 was back then. I'm not very proud. I'm so sorry, but my 105 was like 18. 18 was kind of interesting score because I could have gotten into a JC, or I could have applied for poly. Why I decided to go poly was that I told myself, hey, it was kind of funny because like in prelim I got 18 and then in the actual score I also got 18, so I didn't improve. That was pretty bad, but like most of my peers did improve. But I told myself, hey, if I get 18 and above, like basically a worse score, I'll go to poly, and then below I'll go to JC. And then the reason why I came to that conclusion was that if I didn't do that well in secondary school, I might not actually have a very good foundation, or I might not have done, I might not continue to do as well in JC. So I told myself, hey, maybe my skill sets lie somewhere, because I told myself I'm not stupid. I think I'm, I obviously have, good esteem for my own capabilities. So, and I took a chance with poly. And what was interesting was that poly, I did really, really well, I would say. And, in some ways, thank God for that, where the education is more practical, and my skill set and my strengths are typically leaning towards project based and practical kind of like education. So I did really well. I was the silver medalist for my course, which means I was second in my whole cohort, and that enabled me to proceed to university. So on hindsight, like I think a few decisions that helped me make a decision between JC or poly was that I asked myself, where are my strengths? What kind of education can help me do well in life? And the JC route is very academic. And I told myself, hey, if I continue doing that, knowing that I would not perform, I have not been performing in secondary school, what can I do differently so that I can do well for myself? So thankfully, poly worked out for me. But I would say poly requires you to be very disciplined. So I think Stetson and Kyung would talk about that later on, because if you're not disciplined, you're gone, because you don't have a teacher hounding on you every day to do your homework, right? So yeah, I'll pass on to Kyung.
Well, once again, if you heard my previous introduction, I did not choose my poly pathway. I just took up with it. So the truth was I was really passive. I didn't like to study. I didn't have any interest, maybe, and I had no goal, let's put it that way, just living life as time goes by. But one thing did come out, like while I was living my life in secondary school and onwards, I was very interested in humans, specifically human behavior. So psychology was always on my mind. Specifically whether to help people, not exactly but I was fortunate enough that while I was doing my master's in counseling, I had to do an internship, unpaid internship. So I went into a secondary school, and from there I actually picked up a passion in secondary school kids. So that's why I was actually aiming for the ministry all along, but I didn't get I wasn't accepted the first time. So that's why I was in a different job for a good 5 to 6 years. Then on my second try, MOE took me in. But I suppose to answer the question directly, as you can see, I am the result of someone who is passive and did not plan ahead. And to be honest, I did feel like I wasted the 3 years of my life. But like they say, God has a plan, right? So I think that summarizes my story.
But thanks, Kyung, for sharing that. Yeah. Listen.
Yeah, my turn. So for me, right, I think I shared a similar experiences as Stanley and Kyung. I also didn't do very well in my studies. And I was also forced to take up a choice in either poly or some arts institution. So yeah, so I had actually three reasons. One, because I didn't score well. I have very bad grades. Not really very bad, but very average. So two, I also already knew what industry I wanted to be in. That's why I chose poly. And thirdly, the last reason is because I felt that poly gave a more hands-on experience. You get to really see the results of what your actions are. And yeah, you really have to push yourself. If not, definitely, especially the first year, you definitely need to do well, because that's like the most crucial. The grade is actually the most crucial in the first year. The second and third year, you just need to keep bucking up to keep your GPA up. Yeah. If not, actually, it's like a downhill. Actually, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry. So before we lean on A levels, Tesson, you also did SIT, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I did further study in SIT in Glasgow School of Arts. So in the university, the way they taught us was more of creative thinking. Yeah. So I would say my poly didn't really help my university studies, but it kind of helped me in terms of being okay. To share a bit about my diploma. My diploma is they kind of train the students to be like polymaths in the interactive media field, and kind of expose us to many digital medium as much as they can, and then finally allowing us to choose a medium that we wanted to specialize in. So actually, I hated this polymath approach, but then as I went out to work, I began to kind of appreciate this polymatic approach to better improve myself and also staying relevant to the industry. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Tesson, for sharing. Yeah. But before I share my experience, actually, I just wanted to give some words of encouragement to everyone who's tuning in. You know, coming from as a former teacher, lah. So I must say that our education system is designed really well in a way whereby different people, pursuing different paths and having that knowing of what they want to do at different phases in life can still find what they want to do. So don't give yourself too much pressure that, at this very young age, you must suddenly know, the next 30 years of your life, where you're going to be. That's way too stressful. Yeah, in fact, I think a better approach would be to focus on the processes that you can put in place to help your child or yourself, discover your passion. All right. And then to add on one more point to that point as well. Now, let's face it, in life, not every one of us is so fortunate to be able to make our passion our job. And even if you had the chance, you might not want to do that, because sometimes too much of a good thing makes it a bad thing. Yeah. So if you take a step back and remind yourself that the discovery of your purpose and passion takes time, then focus on, what are some of the experiences you want to give yourself. All right. Yeah. Okay. So maybe I share a little bit more on my path, as well as maybe some of the things that I think you can do to help your child discover their passion. How about that? Yeah. All right. So for myself, I'm quite fortunate since how would I say, secondary, let me think, L1, R5. Okay, so L1, R5, I actually managed to get 4 after all the bonus and everything. Yeah, so I mean, that put myself in a very fortunate place where I can choose whichever school I want to go. So I chose VJ for actually a very simple reason, because got direct bus from my house. So I can sleep a few more minutes in the morning. Yeah, so I went to VJ and I chose double math because it's my passion, and to be very honest, I really enjoy the process of problem solving. Yeah, and turns out it was the right choice because I managed to do well in my A levels as well. So that got me a scholarship. Yeah, and then from there I pursue further lah. Now, if there's one thing that I can take away from my tertiary education that really helped me in life is that process of problem solving. Now, creative problem solving is probably the best skill you can develop through mathematics. at a higher level of mathematics, it's no longer about just counting numbers and making sure that it works. It's really about looking at the problem from different perspectives and asking ourselves, hey, is there a better way? Is there a more elegant solution to the problem? Things like that. Yeah. All right. Okay. So maybe my last point on sharing would be how you can develop that passion. So all throughout my educational years, my parents always encouraged me to have a different experience. So for example, in JC, in the same year, right, I did two very extreme things. I actually went to Philippines to do a community service projects, seeing how people live in a very different world, different from how Singapore is. And that showed me how real the world is, how brutal, and how life can be so brutal as well. And at the same time, in the same year, we actually went to Germany for the Choir Olympics, and that was like, whoa! So the place is so beautiful. The yogurt never tasted so nice. To me, yeah, for the first time. Yeah, so that was another mind blowing experience. So through all these different experiences, it helped me gather a few thoughts. Firstly, I wanted to be in a position whereby I can be giving back to others. Yeah, so that definitely consolidated, within me. And then the other one would be that, hey, I wanted to be in a place whereby I could also go and travel and see the world, things like that. So that kind of then developed like, hey, maybe if I was in teaching, I get more months of holidays, I can bring my students for overseas trips and things like that. Yeah, so that's shifting. Yeah. All right, back to you, Hilary. Yeah.
Thank you for the insightful sharing. So after choosing an education route, right, or track, many would then have to choose their subject combination, or for poly it will be their specific poly course, or even a specialization in that course. So could you all please share why you all chose that specific course or subject combination, and did it help you in university or beyond?
Cool. Maybe just for convenience sake. Okay. I think the thing, yeah. So the thing about poly is indeed you need to kind of understand what industry or what profession you might be heading towards in order for you to find a course that fits you. But though one thing though is also the fact that there are some courses that are harder to get in than others, right? Let's not discount that. The course that I graduated from accounting, that as far as I know right now, R4 you need like 10 or 12 points or something like that, right, to get in, which is really tough, considered, compared to when I graduated. Having said that, the reason why I chose accounting is that I since when I was in secondary school, I wanted to in the future run my own business, but I didn't want to study business. I don't, not that I'm discouraging people to study business, but the reason why I don't want to study business to do business is because I felt that I don't have to study business to do business. I felt that I wanted to learn something, a technical skill, so that in the future, when I run my own business, I have some, skills that I can contribute to my business. So, but even then, accounting, you are exposed to business modules. I don't think they make me a better businessman, to be honest. I think it provided some framework. Easily, you can read up those things. Like Raylene is a math major, but he is doing his business. So you don't really need to study business to do business, right? Yeah, so I think accounting did provide me a good foundation, technical skills, while in the backdrop of me, pursuing my entrepreneurship journey. Another thing I like to add is that how do you discover what your passion or what might suit you? Out there, I think there are a few number of ways to do it. One is obviously to ask yourself, to have a lot of self-awareness and introspection. But I think some people are not able to do that, or don't know how to do that, or you might not know how to help your child to do that. In that kind of situation, there are some tools out there that might be helpful. So there are some assessments tools, that matches possible careers towards personality or strengths. I would say those tools are a good, helpful starting point, but I would caution also over-indexing on it, because even if a personality test say that you might be better suited to be an accountant, without context of what an accountant actually do, and then getting into it, realizing you might actually regret your choice. So, but however, I would like to also add that, like what Raylene shared, sometimes it's not a bad thing changing direction. It's fine. Everybody have their own path. if you study math, you realize that you will want to do something else in the future, go ahead. However, obviously there are some career pathways like medicine, right, where you need to have certain subject combination. So unfortunately, you need to plan ahead for that. But I would say, if you don't understand or don't know enough, it's fine. I believe that eventually you'll find your passion and your journey. Cool. Kyung.
Okay, I think this one's tough for me. Once again, I didn't choose my poly. I was just being lazy. So, JC started first in January and poly started in July during my time. So obviously, like I mentioned, my mom dragged me into it in January and that's it. I just went ahead with it because I was still passive lah. And perhaps one thing to add is, even though I did share that I regretted my 3 years there, I think what I meant more was the actual course itself. I was really struggling because I think one, I was not interested, and two, it was just not my kind of thing. So specifically computer programming, that was what my diploma was about. The plus point though was when I wanted to pursue degree in psychology, they just required a general diploma. So if I might say, my diploma still helped me as a stepping stone to change direction in that sense. There's one additional point I want to tap in, at least based on what Stanley said with the assessment tools and all that can help you look into your interests and what might suit you. Actually, since I'm working in a secondary school now, so I can tell you that schools have a person known as an ECG counselor, which is Education and Career Guidance Counselor. So if you do find yourself not knowing what to do, trying to figure out, what your pathways are like, please take the time, go and find out about this ECG in your school, make an appointment with him or her, because these are exactly some of the things that he or her does lah, and to help you explore and look around for what you may want to consider, and things that may suit you in terms of your personality or interests. So yeah, that's all I have.
You carry a lesson.
For me, actually, I kind of shared what my combination of my specific course and how they kind of helped me beyond. For me, I think the reason why I chose the specific course was because it kind of helped me better communicate my ideas and emotions. Coming from art field, artists, they're very emotional. They need some place to kind of share their experiences, I would say, or tell stories. So I felt that interactive media was the output where ideas could be shared, to be better shared. So I think that's all for me. Yeah. Really?
All right. Yeah. So the question is how we actually how the subjects combination that we chose help us in our career, right? Yeah. Okay. So I think so personally for me, mathematics, what it does is that it provides frameworks for thinking about highly complex problem sets. So in life, right, most problems are not as simple as, like there's like two variables or like two things and then you make a decision. Often it's much more complex than that. Okay, so let me give an application to our conversation that we're having now. Okay, so a lot of people will wonder, to what extent do you plan your path so that you become somewhat successful in life? If we take a step back and look at this problem, right, the first question that I'll ask myself is, I'll ask the user is, look, are you looking for a linear growth or exponential growth? So it's quite different. If you're looking for a linear kind of growth, then you'll be thinking, okay, next year I want to do this, I get this credential, and then I get promoted to this level, and so on and so forth. That's a linear pathway for growth. But if you're looking for exponential growth, then it's very different. You need to put yourself in a position whereby there's a lot of optionality, or there's a lot of how would I say, there's a lot more things that can creatively happen. All right. So maybe I apply that to my own example. One of the reasons why I left teaching is because I knew that I was on a linear pathway of, like, basically after n number of years, then I'll be promoted to, whichever position, and so on and so forth. I'll never be able to do something out of the ordinary if I stay in the civil service. All right. So I knew that in order to do something different, my only way is to leave my comfort zone, which is my civil service job, and do something else. Yeah. So just wanted to share lah. Yeah. All right, Hilary, back to you, please.
Okay, thank you. So I see some questions in the chat. So maybe the first one is by Eileen. So is my son is in Sec 4, but he's not sure what he wants. How do I help him? I know that some of the speakers have already, given some tips, but just wanted to check if any else have any other pointers to share.
Eileen, you're not a dad, but what do you think?
Yeah. Okay, I think I would think about how to help him discover what he wants. Okay, the reason why I put this is because now imagine you go to a bubble tea shop, then the cashier asks you, hey, what do you want to get? Then you say, I don't know. Then it's very hard for someone to tell you what you want. Okay, so like I think exposure to certain areas of interest whereby he might not have exposed himself to before, something like that. Sometimes he would go like, hey, I kind of like that, but you have to expose him to the different areas first. Yeah, that's my suggestion. Yeah.
Cool. I do agree with Eileen. A lot of times as parents, we are super protective of our kids, right? So I now have 2 kids, although they're really young. And sometimes being overprotective, we don't want them to suffer. We don't want to feel pain, right? But I think one thing that I did for myself rightly was that, like, for example, like right after poly, right after, O levels, I went to do odd jobs, because a lot of us youth, right? The first business idea we can think of is like a restaurant. So I went to go and work part-time in a cafe and understand, do I like that kind of job life? And I realized, no, I don't want to be. So sometimes it's okay to, go into experiences where to learn and understand, expose yourself and feel pain. And then you know what you want, right? Yeah. Anybody else got thoughts on this?
I think for me,
view on exposure.
For me, I also went out to be exposed in different areas. I actually went to bake in a bakery.
Yeah.
I actually went to teach art in the studio. So these are all little experiences that kind of help shape, even though they are kind of failures along the way, but they kind of give me very, very good experiences that help shape what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, so the part I was talking about exposure is, even if you don't know what you like, if you expose yourself, at least you'll find out what you don't like or what you suck at. So the exposure actually does help you filter your options.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So our second question is for Wing Keong. So it's by Ong Lacey. So the question is, how do you adapt to poly given that discipline is key, as Stanley shared previously? And given that there is no goal, how does one choose the study?
Okay, my honest answer to you is I don't know how I end up having friends every year that was willing to help me. I think this was my key point. I can name you every single person in my year 1, year 2, year 3, and actually even past that, my degrees. I had people willing to step forward and help me, and they would drag me off my feet, I can remember that I'm always late for class, and my friend has to literally call me every day. I wonder why he's still my friend, but yeah, that's the point. So the truth is they dragged me through. I didn't have discipline, but if you had friends to discipline you, in this case, put it this way, that's how I survive.
Yeah. So for me, I think it depends on the personal discipline, right? Like, so for my case, thankfully I had some discipline. I like Keong. Keong is a good friend, by the way. So I just shooting with context. But I think I think peer influence do play a huge part. I think Keong did highlight it correctly. So the first thing I did when I was in poly was to think of who will be my core group of project mates, because normally you will progress through the years with your project team. So you want to find a project team that you can work well with, and they will influence you. You know, whether you skip lectures or you attend our lectures or you go and play, you know, computer games and skip lectures, your peer influence is those people who influence you. However, honestly speaking, personal discipline is very important. For myself, I think because I surprisingly did well for my first semester, I continuously push myself, you know, and you know, thankfully I managed to maintain my grades to, you know, be a you know, top graduate. But yeah.
Stefan, do you have anything to share, given that this question is on poly?
I think for me, no goal. How does one choose to study? For me, also, I would say it's personal discipline. Yeah, but from my point of view was back then when I didn't do well in secondary school, and when I stepped out of there, I decided that okay, now when I'm diploma, a fresh start for me. Since it's kind of hands-on days, and I've always been more inclined to hands-on learning, so that's where I started to pick up things faster. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think, yeah, I agree. For all those you who don't do well in secondary school, poly does feel like a fresh start because it's so different. So that was the same for me. I also told myself this is totally fresh. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Then our next question is from Phoenix. I think it's directed towards Raylin. So Phoenix says that heard from the seniors that JC 2 years is pretty stressful. Even those who scored single digit in O levels may not survive year one. So how can they better prepare for JC?
Okay. I think stress comes about, right, when we view the problem to be bigger than ourselves. So one way to prepare for it is to basically, continuously having that personal growth and being able to slowly tackle the problems one by one. Yeah. So I think during the first 3 months, first maybe 1-2 months in JC, I just wanted to share is quite a big shock, a culture shock as well as everything shock lah. Yeah, for myself. Yeah. So back then in primary school, right? So I used to top the level, but then when I went to JC, right? Back then in primary school, I used to top the level. Then after when I went to secondary school, I barely made it in the top 10 in class. All right. When I went to JC, right? That was the ultimate shock. Right. So there was 20 people in my class. Out of the 20 people, there were 13 scholars. Yeah. So that's the level of competition there. So the way that I dealt with that stress, right, is that I just told myself, well, like how bad can it be, right? Like sometimes you fail some tests, sometimes you just have to be more forgiving on yourself, lah. Yeah. As to whether or not you can survive it, well, I think sometimes when we hear from the people who just maybe your immediate seniors, right? They might tend to paint a more exaggerated picture to you. Okay, so one way is to take a step back and rationalize the situation. Ask yourself, hey, actually most people get promoted to J2, right? It's not like half the cohort gets retained, right? So it's not that bad. So give yourself a pat on the back and tell yourself that, hey, you'll be fine. All right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Chao Wei. What is the salary difference between JC and poly graduates? I think Stanley replied to this one already, so I think we'll give this a skip. Then for the next one will be from Kasin, asking whether there are a lot of projects to do in poly. Stanley also replied to this, but I was wondering whether Wing Keong or Stetson have anything to add, maybe specifically for your poly course.
Oh yes, definitely. Lots of projects.
Every module that you are taking has a project or multiple projects sometimes, and they require you to. Sometimes you can kind of intertwine these projects together. Sometimes it depends. Yeah.
The good thing about that is that like 40 to 60% of your overall grade for your module is on projects. So if you think about it, sometimes how does one project differentiate from the other? And a lot of, quite often it is based on softer aspect than technical aspect, especially when you realize, oh, the answer is actually on the end of the day very similar in terms of technical, answer component. And hence, if you realize your kid or yourself is a very personal person, great in presentation, sometimes end of the day, whether you do better or worse, it depends on that. Which is like in JC, it's like depends on the answer, right? The technical answer. So poly is really really different.
Okay. Then our next question is from April, which is I heard that there are a lot of repeated topics in poly with uni. So is poly a better route if you know your passion already? I think Stanley also replied to this, but maybe just wanted to ask Wei Lin, because in a sense you knew that your passion was in math, right, from the start, but then you went into a JC route. So would you say that, JC would have suited you better, or do you think that poly would have suited you better? If you think back now, lah.
If I think back now, wow, okay. Knowing myself, right? I think I can handle the academic side of things. So I thought that okay, should be fine, no problem. So then that's why I chose JC. Yeah. And then I mean back then I just try to recall when I was their age as well. To be very honest, I'm not so much of the I'm probably better with my head than with my hands. Yeah. So I knew that from a very young age. Yeah. So that's why for me it would be JC law. Yeah.
Okay. Then the next question is from Sam, who asks, what's the percentage of poly graduates who can enter local unis versus JC graduates? So maybe you can share from your personal experience, like in uni, maybe what was the percentage that you saw, and then maybe like what you think about all this. Like how hard is it to get into a uni after poly, or from maybe Wei Lin's perspective, like was the transition from JC to uni easy or hard, so on and so forth?
Okay. Yeah, to be very honest, right, my only uni friend that's from poly is Stanley. No, serious. Okay. Maybe I don't have a lot of friends, but I mean, but anyway, yeah. So that's the first one. As to the transition, right?
Actually, no, Wei Lin, you're wrong. Ying Liang is from poly.
I didn't know her back then.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so that's one. To the second point, in terms of the how was the transition, right? Okay, so uni felt more spaced out, to be very honest. JC's 2 years literally flew past. Yeah, it didn't help that. Okay, so back then I was in the choir, and then the practice sessions were very frequent. All right, back in DJ, and we had to maintain very high standards, basically. So that was very very tiring in terms of the hours. Yeah, whereas when it came to uni, then I realized that actually I could skip lectures. Yeah, so I could steal a bit of rest here and there, while trying to juggle all my CCA load as in uni lah. So Stanley and I were from the investment club, then we also ran other things like the community service clubs and stuff like that. So yeah, and the whole life as well. Yeah, so I thought uni was a lot more vibrant. The experiences were a lot more varied. Yeah. So yeah, you guys want to go? Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think actually this is not really based on experience, but actually just based on pure statistics. Only 15 to 20% of students from poly are allowed by MOE to go into uni. So back then in my class doing accounting, majority are girls. So like 10-15%, that would be just me from my batch. And because that's just how numbers works, right? Percentage, like computation works. So so I think unfortunately for poly, it is a route dedicated actually for students to graduate and go into the workforce. That is the pathway that is meant to be. But if for those who really do well, local uni would allow them to pass through. However, that doesn't stop you from going to foreign universities. And also recent years, SIT, again, my brother went through that route. Stesson went through that route, he's my brother. That is a route designed for poly students to graduate with a degree.
Okay, then we'll move on to the next question, which is from Chin Chuan. So for students who are not strong in O-level English, GP in A-levels will be tough, right? So will this consideration matter in which route to choose? So maybe Wei Lin can share more on this.
Yeah, GP at A-levels to be honest, especially for those coming from a science background, some of us might struggle a bit with it. Yeah. So, but at the same time, I always believe in this thing called the academic hack. All right. So how this concept works, right, is that anything in academic can be hacked. All right. So as long as you know like how to get around it, there's a way to do it, right? So yeah. So now to back to your question, right? I think yes, be mentally prepared that if you don't come from a background whereby your English is that fantastic, which I am not. Okay. So I mean my secondary school is Dunman High, so we focus more on Chinese actually. Yeah. So but I mean somehow or other still managed to get it done lah, right? So yeah, I mean put in your effort, it can be hacked.
Okay, thank you. So maybe the last few questions before we end today's panel discussion will be, if you are given a chance to turn back time, will you change anything? So be it changing your education track or changing your course, your school, or like in a sense, the transition, from maybe your post-secondary to uni or into your career, like will you change anything?
Maybe
And
we
if yes, what is it?
we turn it around. Like Wei Lin, you can go first.
Okay.
Sure.
I think I would have taken my computing modules a bit more seriously. So back then for our math degree, right, we have to learn so many languages. So we learn R, we learn C++, we learn SAS and blah, blah. Anyway, so yeah, I probably would have taken that a little bit more seriously. Yeah, that's one thing I would have changed. Other than that, my academic route, I'm very thankful. Yeah, there's nothing more that I could have asked for. Yeah, so career path-wise, maybe I would have taken a spring scholarship instead of the MOE one. Yeah, so to expose myself a little bit more in terms of the government side of doing business. Yeah, then I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, for me. So given if I have the opportunity if I can turn back time, so I may want to actually steer into an industry that focus on more towards social good, something that can kind of impact society, where my work will greater impact society. So maybe in terms of learning and researching technologies that may better help improve like food security, for instance, like what we are facing now, what Singapore wants to go into, like by 30 to get our own food security done.
Yeah.
So yeah. So but I think how would I put this? As long as you identify the route that you want to take, be it in arts or IT, business, science, or engineering, I think eventually what you learn will kind of help you in achieving your goals in future. It's all applicable, no matter even if the experience wasn't great or it's not what you wanted to learn. Yeah, eventually it will kind of help you along the way.
So for me, I mean, even though I have shared generally that my pathway wasn't the most ideal, to tell you the truth, right now I'm where I want to be, and for that, I don't think I will change a thing. But I mean, given how I've experienced perhaps the students I work with now, I did think back that maybe I wished I had done a bit more prep work. So not like passively when the O levels or get my points ready. I don't know what to do. I don't care that kind of mindset. I mean, if I'm not interested in anything, I might have preferred that maybe I was a bit more proactive, exposed myself more, and spoke to people. During my time, no ECG counselor, so I don't have access to that. But yeah, I would have hoped that I was more proactive in looking out on what's out there in this world. That's all for me.
Cool. For myself, I think I wouldn't change anything from secondary school to poly. I think I'm thankful for what has what I've experienced, because I don't think many people experience the same thing. Because like when I was in secondary school, my teachers actually gave me a lot of autonomy to lead, to do different projects. I was part of a leadership group, and I was given the authority to train my juniors. I actually had to design training programs to train my juniors. So that experience, exposed me to like designing lesson plans, like training people, speaking, training, and gaining confidence. that kind of experience, it's very rare that you ever get that kind of experience anywhere else, I feel. So I think, I was thankful that I went through that experience, which was a more neighborhood school, I guess. Hence, I got more opportunity to do those things. I don't know. But I think what I would have changed would be in terms of uni maybe, because I could have gone to a foreign universities with interest-free loan because, Ngee Poly is rich and they wanted to sponsor me, but I didn't do it. And I, on hindsight, a little bit of regret on that. But however, having said that, if I've done that, I would not have met, the great friends and the people I've met in NTU. So, I don't think you can ever, look back and, blame yourself for doing something different, because where you are here today is because of, the build up, the decisions you have made. And I think that it still has been led us to a good point where we are today. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So maybe our final question will be, do you have any advice for students embarking on a similar road to yours, like a similar track, educational track to yours? So can you all share your advice, please? Thank you.
Ooh. Cool. Maybe I'll go first. So I think quick advice would be, if you ever choose to go through a poly route with an ambition to go to university, you need to understand a few things, which is every semester counts, which means the day you step into the school, every project, every semester, every test counts. Unlike, because when you're used to O levels, right, where you study 4 years, your final exams, the only final exam in your O level counts. But in poly, every semester, every project counts. So, that is a little bit stressful, but at the same time, it's actually not as academically stressful. So it actually gives you a lot of time to experience, do a lot of different, extracurricular, all the way from poly to uni. Even in secondary school, I was involved in 2-3 extracurriculars, being a leader and stuff. So that's something that I have never let up. So I would encourage everyone to, be involved in extracurriculars, but understand that if you do a poly route, every semester counts. You cannot just, have a bad semester, just don't study and decide that, you would do well, eventually. No. Yeah, everything counts towards the GPA. Yep. Xiong.
Okay. Now, coming from a counseling perspective, I am generally more neutral. No matter which direction you go, that's fine. But there are some things that I would like to highlight that you'll be more careful of, since this is academics. Especially in Singapore, the environment is extremely competitive. So the most common trend is people tend to compare. Your results can be good, but your neighbor's doing better, so you feel depressed and lousy about it. I think the main point is you have to get that mentality out of the way. It is true that those who go uni will likely have a higher salary than those who just have a diploma and so on and so forth. But if you're always looking at it that way, then the end game is you will never be satisfied, because there's always someone earning more than you. So that will be my point, to be careful of the trap of always wanting to be on top. And secondly, if we look at what you choose to do, the main point is, rather than what it can get you, I think most importantly, you have to enjoy it. And if you can't enjoy it, at least make some meaning out of it. But if you really, really hate it so badly, then it is a sign that maybe you should not be in that direction, or you shouldn't be pushing yourself to a certain point, because there is always a breakdown point. And I've spent 6 years working with people suffering from mental health issues. So, yep.
I think to what Kyung said, I think you need to find a purpose in what you are trying to do. A purpose in, let's say, for myself, I'm doing design. Actually, I am still where I am now. I'm still trying to find the purpose of why am I designing, or what's the purpose of designing. Yeah, trying to find meaning to it. Yeah. in anything else you do, I guess you need to find a purpose. Even for I think Kyung's purpose is trying to guide students, I guess, and then my Stanley is trying to build technology to help people. Yeah, so I think you need to try to find that purpose along the way to kind of steer yourself into becoming successful, I guess. And I would actually gonna drop a link on it's a Spotify link that I recently did for SUSS. So they mentioned a bit on how today's innovation, how an innovative driven world, how are we going to navigate through that? Yeah. So I guess you can go ahead and have a listen to it. There are various things. There's also one series about social work, which if anybody is interested to know more about it, I guess that's one of the topics inside the podcast. Yeah. So a few things that I think you can learn more about or may help your kid or yourself to make decision on where to go. I think the podcast may help you guys decide further. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I actually typed out 5 things here. So maybe that would help. Those are the key points that I think I want to share. Yeah, so choose your circle of friends very wisely. A lot of times we feel that we're not so disciplined, there's peer pressure and all that. Well, but guess what? You can choose your peer pressure, correct? So if you choose the right people to be around, then their peer pressure will be positive, right? Yeah. Then the second one is to be super proactive. Yeah. So there was one question on whether which has more internship opportunities, right? Well, guess what? Internship opportunities, you can go and hustle for it. If you want to be intern at a particular company, you think it's fantastic, just go email them, call them, knock on their door, visit their office, say, hey, I want to be an intern here. Yeah, blah blah. Yeah, be proactive. The third one would be to really know your strengths, and if you're not sure yet, take time to explore that. Yeah, so there's always these 2 schools of thought. One is to hone your work on your weaknesses, but I don't believe in that. I believe in honing your strengths. Yeah, because we let's just face it, like none of us are perfect. If we keep thinking that we work on our weaknesses, then one day we'll be this beautiful, flawless person. That's just not going to happen. Okay, so yeah, know your strengths and just keep working on them. Yeah, you can always work in a team whereby people cover for your weaknesses, no problem. All right. The fourth one would be that life follows a non-linear path. All right, so don't expect the issue. Okay, if you ask me, the issue with our education system is that it makes everything a little bit too structured. So everyone is going home with this idea that, after 6 years of primary school, it'll be like 4 years of university, about 4 or 5 years of secondary, and then JC, poly, blah blah. It's a little bit too structured. Well, the moment you leave that education system, life is no longer structured already. All right. So life follows this non-linear path. It might go anywhere. All right. So be ready for those curveballs, and it's okay to drop some. Just pick it up again and go again. All right. And then I think the fifth one would be really to take time to reflect and to introspect. Yeah. The best way to achieve some very deep level of personal growth and your own is to spend time to basically reflect. Yeah, I mean, if it helps, go around asking people, ask people that you work closely with, ask people that you mix around with. You ask them, hey, can you give me some feedback? Can you help me? Is there any way that you think I can improve on something? Ask these tough questions, and just leave the ego at the door and be prepared to take in whatever that people say to you. You don't have to agree with them, but it's okay to take them in. All right, so take that time to reflect, and then over time you do enough of this, right? Then you start to realize what you want in life. Yeah, and this thing will change as you go through different phases of life. So it's okay, no problem. All right, but you have to take the time to reflect and to introspect. All right, so these are my 5 points for everyone. Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I'd like to add one more point. So I think Wei-Li inspired me about one thing that I did do also, like taking time to reflect and introspect. On that point, I did do a sabbatical when I was in uni. It's quite popular nowadays for uni students to do that. I'm not sure if poly or A-level students can do that, but I would say, a lot of us as parents or as students, we try to hurry through the academic system. We think that if we have to retain 1 year, if we take 1 more year in poly, oh, it's gonna be a disgrace because compared to my friends, they are taking less time. But I don't think there's any disgraceful about it. If we take more time, but we understand what we want to do in life, we learn our passion or purpose earlier and optimize for it on our own terms, that is much better than graduating and then getting into something that you really hate and don't like, isn't it? So I think losing 1 year, 2 years is much better than losing like 5, 10 years of your life doing something you hate. So I think, I really encourage people to, do that.
Okay, thank you everyone. So we have come to the end of today's panel discussion. Thank you for joining us this Sunday afternoon, and we hope that you gained a lot from our speakers sharing. Do aid us in filling this feedback form to help us improve our further webinars. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. Thank you. Have a great evening.